The forest was silent except for the faint rustle of leaves swaying gently in the cool evening breeze. A soft orange hue painted the sky as the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows among the towering trees. Deep within the dense underbrush, a creature lay trembling. Her breathing labored and her body racked with pain. She was a small fox, her russet fur matted with blood, her hind leg twisted unnaturally. She had been running for hours, fleeing from an unseen predator, when she had miscalculated a leap and landed wrong. Now she was alone, injured, and vulnerable in a world that showed no mercy to the weak. The fox had always been cautious. The forest was her home, and she knew its dangers well. She had seen others fall to traps set by humans or succumb to the jaws of larger predators. Yet, despite her instincts, she had found herself cornered earlier that day, her only option to sprint through unfamiliar territory. Her heart had pounded with fear, her small paws barely touching the ground as she darted through thickets and over fallen logs. She hadn't seen the hole hidden beneath a pile of leaves until it was too late. Now, every movement sent waves of agony through her body. She licked at the wound on her leg, but the effort was futile. The metallic taste of blood lingered on her tongue, and she knew instinctively that she couldn't stay here for long. Predators would catch the scent of her injury. Her sharp ears caught the distant calls of birds settling in for the night, a reminder that time was slipping away. She needed to find shelter, somewhere safe to hide until her strength returned, if it ever did. She tried to stand, her muscles quivering with the effort. Pain shot up her leg, forcing her back to the ground with a whimper. The forest seemed to close in around her, the shadows growing darker as the sun disappeared completely. Panic bubbled within her chest, but she forced herself to remain still. She had survived this long by staying calm, by listening to her instincts. But now, as the darkness deepened, those instincts offered no solutions. She was truly alone. Hours passed. The once vivid sounds of the forest faded into a quiet hum. The fox's eyelids grew heavy, her body craving rest despite the danger. Just as she began to drift into an uneasy sleep, a new sound reached her ears. It was faint at first, a rhythmic crunching of leaves and twigs. Her ears perked up, her entire body tensing despite the pain. The sound grew louder, closer. Her heart raced as she tried to determine what was approaching. Then, she saw it. A figure moving through the trees, illuminated faintly by the moonlight. It was human, tall and broad-shouldered, carrying a small flashlight that cut through the darkness. The fox's first instinct was to flee, but her injured leg pinned her in place. She let out a low growl, hoping to deter the intruder, but her voice was weak, barely audible. The human paused, shining the light in her direction. She squinted against the sudden brightness, her heart hammering in her chest. "Hey, it's okay," the human said softly. The voice was calm, soothing, and the fox felt a flicker of confusion. She had heard humans before, their loud voices echoing through the forest as they hunted or explored, but this one sounded different. There was no threat in the tone, only concern. The human crouched down, the light shifting away to avoid blinding her. "You're hurt," they murmured, their gaze falling on her injured leg. The fox bared her teeth, a feeble attempt to ward them off, but the human didn't retreat. Instead, they reached into their backpack, pulling out something small and wrapped in cloth. The scent of food wafted toward her, and her stomach growled involuntarily. She hadn't eaten since the morning, and hunger gnawed at her insides. The human unwrapped the item, revealing a piece of cooked meat. They placed it on the ground a few feet away and stepped back, giving her space. "It's for you," they said, their voice gentle. "I'm not going to hurt you." The fox hesitated, her instincts screaming at her to stay away, but the smell was too enticing. Slowly, painfully, she dragged herself closer to the offering. Her eyes never left the human as she sniffed the meat, her nose twitching. When she was certain it wasn't a trap, she took a small bite. The taste was unlike anything she had ever experienced, rich and savory. She devoured the rest quickly, her hunger momentarily sated. The human watched her with a soft expression, their eyes filled with something the fox couldn't quite comprehend. Compassion, perhaps. They didn't move closer, respecting her space, but their presence was steady, reassuring in a way she hadn't expected. After a few moments, they spoke again. "You need help," they said. "I can't just leave you here." The fox didn't understand the words, but the tone was unmistakable. The humans stood slowly, reaching into their backpack once more. This time, they pulled out a thick blanket. Moving with deliberate care, they approached her, their hands open and unthreatening. The fox tensed, her muscles coiled to flee despite the pain, but she couldn't summon the strength. The human draped the blanket over her, tucking it gently around her fragile body. It was warm, soft, and for the first time in hours, she felt a sliver of comfort. "I'll take you somewhere safe," the human said, their voice barely above a whisper. They slid their arms beneath her, lifting her with surprising gentleness. She whimpered at the movement, the pain in her leg flaring, but the human murmured soothing words, their warmth seeping into her trembling form. She wanted to fight, to escape, but exhaustion overwhelmed her. The steady rhythm of the human's footsteps lulled her into a reluctant sense of security. The journey was a blur. The fox drifted in and out of consciousness, her body too weak to stay alert. When she finally opened her eyes fully, she was in a new place. The scent of pine and earth was replaced by something cleaner, unfamiliar. She lay on a soft surface, the blanket still wrapped around her. The human was nearby, their hands busy as they sorted through various items on a table. A small fire crackled in the corner, casting a warm glow throughout the space. The fox tried to move, but a sharp pain in her legs stopped her. She let out a low whine, drawing the human's attention. They turned quickly, their expression softening when they saw her awake. "Hey there," they said, crouching beside her. "You're safe now. Let me take a look at that leg." The fox growled weakly as they reached for her, but she was too tired to resist. The human's hands were careful, their touch light as they examined the injury. They cleaned the wound with a strange-smelling liquid that stung, causing her to flinch, but their soothing voice kept her calm. They wrapped her leg in a bandage, securing it tightly but not uncomfortably. When they were finished, they sat back, giving her space once more. "You'll heal," they said confidently. "It'll take time, but you'll be okay." The fox didn't understand the words, but the tone was enough. She watched the human warily, her sharp eyes taking in every detail. They didn't seem dangerous, but she couldn't afford to trust so easily. Yet, as the days passed, her fear began to wane. The human brought her food, always leaving it within reach but never forcing her to eat. They spoke to her often, their voice a constant presence that she found oddly comforting. Gradually, the fox's strength returned. Her leg healed slowly, the pain diminishing with each passing day. She still limped, but she could move more freely now. The human seemed pleased with her progress, their smile warm and genuine whenever she managed to take a few steps. They even created a small enclosure outside, allowing her to feel the grass beneath her paws again. It wasn't the same as the wild, but it was better than being confined indoors. Despite her initial wariness, the fox began to feel a sense of gratitude toward the human. They had saved her, cared for her when she had been at her weakest. She still didn't fully trust them, her instincts wouldn't allow it, but she no longer saw them as a threat. In their presence, she felt a strange sense of safety, a feeling she hadn't known in a long time. As weeks turned into months, the fox's leg healed completely. The human knew it was time to let her go. They led her to the edge of the forest one crisp morning, the air filled with the scent of dew and pine. The fox hesitated, her sharp eyes meeting the human's. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then, the human crouched down, their voice soft. "You're free now," they said. "Go on. This is your home." The fox understood the gesture if not the words. She took a step forward, then another, her paws sinking into the familiar soil of the forest. She turned back once, her gaze lingering on the human who had saved her. They smiled, raising a hand in a silent farewell. With a flick of her tail, the fox disappeared into the trees, her heart lighter than it had been in months. She was free again, but she would never forget the kind human who had shown her compassion when she needed it most. The forest was still dangerous, still unforgiving, but she was stronger now, braver. And somewhere deep in her heart, she carried the memory of warmth, safety, and a kindness she had never expected to find. The fox roamed her territory with renewed vigor. The scent of pine and wildflowers filled her senses, and her once injured leg now supported her effortlessly. She avoided the traps and dangers she once feared, her heightened instincts guiding her with precision. But despite her newfound strength, she often found herself near the edge of the forest, where the human had let her go. On one particular evening, as the golden rays of the setting sun filtered through the trees, the fox sat on a rocky outcrop overlooking the edge of the forest. She could see the small dwelling where the human lived. Smoke rose lazily from the chimney, and the faint sound of their movements reached her ears. A part of her longed to approach, to feel the warmth and safety she had experienced in their care. But she knew that her place was here, in the wild, where she truly belonged. Time passed and the seasons changed. The forest transformed with each passing month, its colors shifting from vibrant green to fiery hues of autumn, then to the muted tones of winter. The fox adapted, her thick fur shielding her from the biting cold. She hunted with precision, her body lean and strong. She was a survivor, shaped by the trials she had faced.